Hey guys, what is up? Kid here of Burn1, Shadowverse Evolve channel, as always, bringing you top deck review from the Costa Rica, I believe? Yes, the San Jose, Costa Rica Busho Championships series there. We had, it happened about a week ago or so, a little bit more than a week ago, and I'm just now getting around to reviewing it. We're going to take a quick look at the top decks that placed at that event, and no surprise, obviously, Idolmaster did take it in the end, but we'll take a look at the decks that did win and kind of talk about them a little bit. But what's really cool about this time is that Bushiroad and Side Games are doing something new. I think Bushiroad mostly in general is doing this. Before, we would never get breakdowns of events really, but they recently started providing that actually. And so here we go. Let's just hop into the San Jose, Costa Rica one. Here is the tournament breakdown of deck distribution there. I believe this tournament had around like 50 some players. They don't have the exact count on the page here, at least I don't see it. If we come across it, obviously we'll correct that. But I believe from what I remember hearing, it was like 58 or 59 players, I believe, at this event. I've met some people from Costa Rica community, and they are very cool people. I've met them in Texas and in the Bushiroad Championship Series, or not Bushiroad Championship Series, the Grand Showdown. Some of them did come out and fly to compete in that. So they do have a very solid, strong community out there with some very strong players. I think a couple of their players did make top 32, or at least one of them did, for the Grand Showdown. So we'll take a look at what they're doing here. But first things first, let's talk about the breakdown here. Surprisingly, I think this is about where I thought things would be overall. The only thing I'm kind of interested in is the surpriseness of the Idolmaster is only around 17%. I assume this would have been the top played deck there, not only because it's super strong and probably one of the best, if not the best decks to be playing right now in this like short 1 month format essentially, but it's super cheap to get as well. It requires one like trial deck that you can buy or starter deck for it, and then just like a couple cards you need to add from the booster. So kind of surprised it's a little bit on the less played side, but it is still like the second, third most played technically. But I think no surprise to a lot of people, Forestcraft has been having a great showing overall since Grand Showdown. It's been proven for a fact now that Pixies are very strong. They have lines of play that just are unbeatable if you just draw in the correct order, drawing things like Fairy Circle into plus Fairy Dancer into like Amataz. Like those types of games are just like you're never going to not win those games essentially as the fairy player, especially if you go first. The damage output and like the amount of pressure you put out so quickly in some of those high roll hands are insane. And even in the low roll hands, the deck is still fairly competent as long as your opponent doesn't have some kind of like crazy OTK push or anything like that, or can deal with whiteboards over and over again. The Forestcraft deck, the Pixie deck, does go a long way, and we only got more improvements in the IMAS set. The other thing I'm not too surprised about too is Dragoncraft being a pretty high percentage as well. I felt like it would have dropped a little bit, but it did get a couple new support cards. But I'm not sure exactly what Dragoncraft decks were being played at this event. I assume they were all disdained. But I guess if anyone made top 4, because I haven't looked at the whole list of top 4 just yet, it would be that. One of the other things too I'm very surprised about is Abysscraft still holding on there. Just clenching on. I understand a lot of people really like the Control Abyss deck overall, and I mean obviously Aggro Abyss is a highly represented deck that people do love to play. They love the self damage, but I felt like it would have fallen into the single percentages now at this point. Definitely under 10%. Kind of surprised it's at 14 here, but it is what it is. I think like a lot of players did finally figure out that even though Control Abysscraft is very strong, it's not always the most consistent deck in the room. And then everything else, no surprise here. The random probably one-of player there playing Uma Musume. We'll probably have this for quite a while. Luckily, there is a set 2 coming out in a year or so. But let's look at the first deck here, Esteban's Idolmaster deck. It is a very generic, very normal, just list of cool aggro here. We have it's the cookie cutter build. There's nothing really crazy to be talking about in this. I like the inclusion of the Rin Mio Honda package along, obviously with the Zuki and so forth. We do play a couple Ronkos here to kind of shore up in the mirror match a little bit as well. It's just all very strong, very powerful cards. If we go at the end here to be able to like build crazy boards, we're pulling cards out of our deck and so forth. The deck just has such high roll potential, just like Pixie Forest essentially, except I feel like this deck is a little bit more consistent where if your opponent just misses a turn answering your board state, you immediately destroy them. You just push out so much damage so quickly, it's just obnoxious. Evo deck, like I said, pretty standard Evo deck. It looks like 3 Izukis. I'm not exactly 100% sure if that is like the most standard play line, but I'm not also surprised either. Drawing with Izuki is very important in getting out certain combo pieces, getting a Mio Honda out, finding your Rins and pulling that out for 2 play points cheaper to combo with a Mio Honda in hand or anything like that. It is just for the most part, pretty standard list. I approve of it. Proof of this list completely. It's just a really good deck. What can I say? And I'm sure this deck costs like less than $60. Second place, no surprise here either. We got Forestcraft back again. This is more of a Pixie combo deck, essentially. Now that we have IMS in the meta, we have new cards like Anastasia here that are really powerful cards to just pop off and build really crazy wide boards on turn 5 with the power pump and the refund of play points as well from the Anastasia fanfare, as well as the combo effect is just super good. It naturally slots itself in to the deck itself as well, because once again, we're playing kind of this high rolly Pixie deck here. So, just having more fake, essentially, Spinarias to be able to pop off a little bit is always really, really great. Obviously, Anastasia isn't the key piece to the deck because it doesn't really generate more cards for you. It just generates a really strong, powerful board, especially like on turns 5, 6, and 7. And building those boards sometimes is more than enough to just really take over the game from there. If they don't have a really great way to handle a wide board, watching like your opponent's board just get super power pumped by like Elf Song plus Anastasia popping off in the same turn is pretty obnoxious. I really like this list. It's probably something very similar I would play. I made the same concessions before where I was tired of seeing Roach so often, but Roach is really good at 2-for-1ing if needed. So keeping Roach in there, and also some of the high rolls with Roach are insane. But keeping Roach in there as a 2 of, I assume. Let's look at the Evo deck. Yeah, we have 2 of the Evos here, which is not surprising here. We have as well this other IMAX card here. Let me open this up really quick. Yumi Aiba 2. This is another nice control piece here. You got to play that instead of, what is the card? Rose Gardener. A lot of people do not like Rose Gardener, but I feel like those people just don't understand like the reasoning for Rose Gardener and some of the older lists. It was kind of like a necessary evil because we needed that tempo advantage. But now we have a card that can now either 2-for-1 or at least answer like a 5 health guy by bottoming a deck of the Yumi Aiba. Really like this list. It's probably something very, very similar that I would be playing like myself. I really like the Cassiopeias too. I think Cassiopeia was very slept under in the deck list for the most part, because I don't know if people just forgot or not, but cards in your EX zone count towards the damage that Cassiopeia is going to do. So a lot of times, depending on the game states, you can be doing like 10 plus damage to the board just to clear everything up. It's a really powerful card, and it's a really solid body overall, 4/5 as well. So yeah, I'm glad to see Cassiopeia kind of coming back a little bit in favor here. Very solid deck all around, of course. Third place here, Viper's Runecraft deck. No surprise once again, we have Kuan here. Kuan is just a very strong, consistent deck. I think people kind of slept on it just because it didn't win an entire event, but the fact is, like, Kuan really shapes the meta for this game right now, and it's going to continue shaping the game just until it finally gets Curse Crafter restricted here. Looking at this list, it's a fairly standard list. I'm not a big fan of Penguin Wizard, but this list does play Penguin Wizard, which is a fine choice of card because usually you have some leftover slots in your your Evo deck, and putting a Penguin Wizard Evo in there is not going to be the end of the world. But list is super standard. Only 1 Crimson Meteor Storm. Personally, I think sometimes having 2 board wipes is kind of important. Being able to get 1 back as well, or play back-to-back, especially in the mirror, is good. But I mean, if you're not anticipating a lot of the mirror, maybe this card is less important, and it's also too slow to really combat IMAS, really. I would probably be looking at some more lower to the ground cards here, but you still have a lot of control in this list. They do play the one of Wind Blast too, which is an interesting choice as well. I feel like a lot of times I would just rather play like the 4th copy of Snipe, but sometimes the pay 1 deal 4 is like pretty good once you get Spell Chain up. Besides that, everything else looks pretty standard overall. Solid work here. Evo deck, like I said, you usually have room here. I'm more of a fan of going 3 Demon Caller, 3 Merlin, 3 Curse Crafter, and then like 1 of something else, and just not have a last thing. but 2 Penguin Wizards into 2 Penguin Wizard Evos, totally fine as well. Final top 4 list here, Control Abyss, making it in there, sneaking it in. I think when it comes to Control Abyss in general, at least why I'm not a big fan of it, because I do feel like it's a bit inconsistent at times, but this player here is going for triple PTP. They want that card draw. The card draw is super important in this list. If you've been playing any Control Abyss list, you know, in the beginning, I was like on 2 soul conversions, and then eventually it became 3 because it was just important. Because the games you saw some card draw was so different than the games you didn't. Obviously, this player as well, Pumbas, I hope I said that correctly, kind of came to that same conclusion and opted for the PTP. I guess PTP also kind of, if your opponent doesn't play around it when you're playing against cool aggro, this can kind of answer the board as well, or you put yourself into that scenario because you do technically have some ways to go ahead and damage yourself. And I like the inclusion of Apostle of Silence here. I do think this card is like oddly slept on a lot of the times. It's a really good alternate win condition to pressure your opponent very hard because of its effect of just dealing damage to your opponent once you got their hand size down to you know, a very little hand. Because if you've ever played the like hand rip Control Abyss, at the end of the day, even if your opponent is on 1 card, sometimes all they need is that 1 top deck to really matter. So giving them an extra top deck over and over and over again, eventually they could possibly draw into the one thing that screws you over. But yeah, I like the one of Azazel too. I'm not like the biggest fan of Azazel, especially in this format, but it comes up occasionally if you end up playing into metas that have huge healing pools. If you watch any of our online locals that we do run on this channel, for a while we had some healing terrorists in our group. They were amongst us, and I'm sure Azazel got a lot of value off of that. Though I'm not the biggest Azazel fan in this current meta, it's still a relatively solid pick overall, especially if you're not looking to do damage too early and you're just waiting kind of to Azazel Evo and set up the like OTK essentially. Triple Israfil, we need that obvious way to stabilize with healing, along with triple Gensetsu, both insane cards, triple Death's Breath as well, so we can loop those cards. All very, very important. Solid list overall. It's almost like my list, except I don't play the BTPs because I am not that greedy. At least I feel that it's kind of greedy, but I totally understand why you would play it. Don't fault them for it. And then the Evo deck, really quick here, super standard Evo list overall. The only difference here is like, this is personally why I don't like running Azazel, because I don't like using an Evo slot when I get to play 3 Gensetsus. I think 3 Gensetsu Evos are like one of the best cards to be Evoing over and over again and putting that pressure onto our opponent, especially when we have Death's Breath to like keep looping them once they get removed. It's quite annoying for our opponent. It's triple that, or triple Israfil. I think triple Gensetsu is better because it's more likely to happen more than Israfil. Israfil usually is there for the board clear and like the minor healing, and then sometimes it sets up lethal because they can't answer Israfil with like a 10-10 board. But yeah, that is the San Jose, Costa Rica regional, BCS 24-25 regional qualifiers. Really, really great showing overall. I think this is about what we expected in the top cuts. Honestly, I almost made it out there myself, but unfortunately, once I realized that the event had no sponsored invites to Japan, and I'd have to spend about $200 to $300 extra to make it out there than my normal traveling cost, I decided not to go, unfortunately. But congratulations to all of the San Jose, Costa Rica players there. You guys had a great showing, and everyone who made top 4, or I guess top 3 technically, I hope you do make it to Worlds, and I hope you perform well. Other than that, whenever these other BCS events happen, I will go ahead and be doing a top 4 look at it and talk about the tournament deck distribution. I think the next event coming up is Georgia, which should be in about a week. So look forward to that. Unfortunately, I'm not making that one. I decided not to make it to that one at the end, last second. I just couldn't make it fit into my schedule. So good luck to everyone going to Georgia, and hopefully we see some cool, different tech out there, because as much as I like cool IMAS, I'd love to see a Passion deck make top 4. With that being said, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. It keeps me going. It keeps me invested in this channel itself and everything. So hopefully we'll see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.